Everybody has a superpower. The problem is people are so focused on wanting to have somebody else's superpower, they never take the time to discover their own.
We're joined today by none other than one of the most inspirational influences in business and entertainment. Our special guest today is a Grammy-nominated, multi-platinum record producer and a publisher responsible for selling over 75 million records. To add to his credibility, Clinton Sparks is the highly successful seasoned entrepreneur, investor, author, and marketing maven, producing some of the world's most notable entertainers, such as Eminem, Kanye West, Lady Gaga, Beyonce, Rick Ross, Diddy, Pitbull, Ludacris, Big Sean, Akon, 2 Chainz, and a whole lot more. As the CEO and founder of Get Familiar Inc., he's innovating the way in which companies and brands connect by helping them align and amplify themselves to make a greater impact. And if that did not keep him busy enough, he's also the co-founder of Get Familiar Tech, which is also a technology company providing innovation solutions and services specializing in service automation, data analytics, and system cloud integration. Not to mention, he's also the co-founder of CBDO, of his esports lifestyle gaming brand, Xset. Not to mention Clinton's newest endeavor, which includes his hit radio station, Get Familiar Radio, and Bootē, a state-of-the-art women's athleisure line. Guys, help me welcome this busy entrepreneur, highly successful, highly inspirational young man, Clinton Sparks. Clinton, dude, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Yes, Get Familiar. I'm doing awesome. Thank you for your concern on my well-being. How about yourself?
Doing great, man. Dude, I'm excited to talk to you. You have had one heck of a career to date. You've inspired so many people, not just working with artists, not just an entrepreneur, not just an author. Dude, I don't even know how you found time to fit it all into one lifetime. Give us the origin story. Like, where'd you come from? How'd you get into all this stuff?
Well, it's funny you say that because I always say I feel like I live 10 lives. Like there's so many things that I've done that I forget a lot of it. And then there'll be people that come up and remind me or, say a line to me from like an Eminem verse or something or something we did together. And I'm like, what is that? And they'll be like, and I'm like, oh shoot, I forgot I even did that. So it's funny when you look at when I was going through my web designer from my website, clintonsparks.com, when you look at the timeline of my career, every year has been like giant significant moments that like one of those years somebody would live on for the rest of their life and say, I did this thing in 2013, right? And like when you look at it, and I'm not even saying that to gloat or brag, I'm saying it because I go back and I'm one of those people that just keep my head down, throw out work, and I don't recognize the impact or effect that I had because I just feel like, look, to go back to your question, I'm an insecure kid who was bullied, sexually abused, had no father. My mother worked multiple jobs. I was very lonely growing up. So you have this kind of mentality where it's like, look, Dad, I hit a home run mentality, right? That you're always trying to prove yourself that you're worthy to care about or pay attention to, right? So that's carried with me as an adult. So that's my work ethic. It's always kind of like, look, I got an A on my test because I'm always trying to show, over deliver, you know what I mean? to just be cared about. Yeah. So that's kind of what I do with my work is I just put more stuff out. Like I could close $1 million yesterday on one of my companies. I could author a book. I could seal another deal. I could do, and like today that doesn't matter. And I know that's kind of like, the cliche entrepreneur mentality now. You hear all these gurus and people's punting off courses and books and everything, which you can just regurgitate stuff from real people that did it, right? Yeah. But it's like, it's something that like, I can't help it. I can't turn it off. And I don't know. I always feel like, I tell my son this too, because he beats himself up over it because he's very creative. I go, one day when you're a creator and you're just got the kind of mind that's always thinking, one day you feel like you're the shit. And the next day you feel like you are shit. You know what I mean? And it's like, and that's how you feel. So every day is like the refresh button. What I did yesterday doesn't matter. And I wish I could change that because I need to relish in some of my success more and celebrate my wins. And maybe I will when I retire, if I ever even retire. You know what I mean? So
is there such thing as a retirement in your future? I don't think so. I think you're too much like, I think it's one of the things you and I have in common is this entrepreneurial journey. I think we will retire when we're sleeping. Like in a call.
Right. Or it's hard for me to sleep too. That's another thing I have. I don't know how to take vacation. I don't know how to and I've been learning how to, but it doesn't get in the way of me being a good dad, right? Or being a good family man. So it's not like I'm such a workaholic that I neglect my family because I don't, because part of look at work to me is awesome and it's fun, right? People that what I do is called work to other people. To me, it's who I am. It's in my DNA. So I don't know how to not work, so to speak. And part of, so work to me is fun. So all the things I do that I love doing and passionate about is being with my family and work. And they're both equally as enjoyable to me. So I'm not like, oh man, I got to go hang out with my family, which gets in the way of this. Or, oh man, I got to go to work. They're both awesome. And I've learned how to intertwine them both to be the most significant meaning of my life.
Dude, I love it. You know, it's funny. There's so much in common. You and I have very similar upbringings and backgrounds. Like you and I have a whole separate show just talking about that, or just kicking it on the couch somewhere and talking about it. But one of the things that I've found is I have a sincere drive to, I own 6 companies as it stands. So I've got this entrepreneur drive inside of me, right? I've got that. But I also have this sincere drive. And I think it has to do with that background of coming up from the hard straps kind of scenario where I do want to make sure that I'm not only the guy at the business, but also the guy at the house. Right. Like I'm making time. I'm at the football games. I'm doing that stuff. I'm there for the coachable moments. I'm there when my kid breaks up with his girlfriend for the first time. Mine are like 19 to 20, but kind of thing. And I'm trying to be this really good dad. And I feel like a lot of people actually struggle with that, especially as entrepreneurs. They struggle with that balance or the perception of balance. What have you done that it's allowed you to kind of capitalize it and try to be in both places at once without sacrificing one for the other?
Well, I think a lot of times people get in the way. There's 2 reasons why people focus on work more than their family. One is because maybe they have a fear of the business falling apart, and in their mind, that business falling apart then makes their family fall apart. So you kind of got that, I got to work, how else am I going to pay these bills type of mentality, right? And then you have another guy that's just like full of like ego and greed and driven by success and doesn't realize that having a great, healthy family is a major component of success. So I think they lack that vision. They'll look at themselves as a visionary or a leader in what they're doing and then neglect that. And really they're not, I talk about in my book, understanding all of the qualities. Somebody may look at me, like one of the examples I bring up is I was the first guy to really like have a major residency in Vegas that had billboards on the sides of taxis and stuff like that. I was selling out my party every single Saturday night. I had the biggest artists in the world come and performing for free all the time. And I talk about in the book and I go on and illustrate how amazing I was doing. And then I point out, you would think that I was doing everything right because I'm killing it, right? And then I'm like, wrong. And then I point out all the wrong things I was doing or the things I was missing out on because I was so focused on those things that I forgot about some other things. But those are things that you learn as you grow up, as you succeed, through experience, through failures. You can't some of these things you can't teach. You can warn, you know what I mean? And you can advise and guide. But you really if I tell you rolling down a grassy hill, blah, 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 unless you've done it and understand what that itch feels like or what the grass smells like or grass stains in your pants and you don't get it. So, and so you have to live it to go through it. So people like you and me and great podcasts and courses and books, they can give you kind of the guardrails and they can give you what to look out for and what to pay attention to and how not to make this mistake and be wary about this and that. But you have to live. You have to take that information and go do it. And you have to fuck up and you have to win and you have to understand the feelings that are going to come with those and how you personally deal with those feelings. Because the way you deal with them or I deal with them or they deal with them are completely different based off of our ego, our insecurities, our vulnerabilities, the history, how we were raised. So you can't teach somebody those things. You can just guide and help them based off of your experience. And I say all the time to people look, just because I'm doing this, it doesn't necessarily mean I'm smarter than you or better than you. I just happen to have more experience than you, so I can teach you these things. And that's, I think a lot of people look at because they know things and they have more success. Like the first line of my book literally says, the biggest mistake I made in my life was thinking that people more successful than me were smarter than me or better than me. And I think we all make that mistake. We look at somebody that's invested in Facebook or, started this company or did that. And we automatically naively think that because he graduated from Harvard or he started this company and sold it for $1 billion, that he's smarter than me. And that's not the case. He just was in that one little specific thing. But there could be something that I would murder him in with intelligence. You know what I mean? And like, people don't look at it that way. They just feel like that guy doing that must be way smarter than me.
Yeah. No, I mean, I totally get that. And I think we all have to deal with comparison at some level, but I think you're right. I think the older I get and the more experience that I have, the more businesses that I'm working with, the more people I'm working with, whatever. The one thing that I'm discovering is everybody has a sphere of genius. Mm-hmm. That's like number one, is everybody's got that thing, right? It just so happens with the mindset that you have, you've been able to have a sphere of genius in a lot of different areas. But the other thing that I've heard you kind of talk about in a couple of interviews you've done is this importance of the adversity, right? A lot of artists that you work with, I mean, most of their music is about the stuff that they screwed up, right? And overcoming that and battling back and fighting back and trying to become something, more than even they dream possible, including fighting the limiting beliefs and the self-esteem stuff that goes with it. Right. In fact, you've got this quote. I love this quote you got. I'm gonna read it verbatim. I don't want to mess it up at all because I think it's so good. When you compete with yourself, you can only get better. When you compete with others, then you are only aiming to be better than their best, which means you're never as good as yourself.
I don't think that's verbatim. I think the end says...
I almost had it. Last word.
Yeah, the last line, which means you're only competing. It goes... what was the first part again? The last line.
You compete with yourself, you can only
get better.
Compete with others, then you are only aiming to be better than their best.
Which may never be as good as yours.
There you go.
Which may never be as good as yours, and you'll never know because you're only comparing yourself to them, and you could actually be better than them.
Yeah.
There's another quote of mine in the book too, going back to people's having superpowers, is everybody has a superpower. The problem is people are so focused on wanting to have somebody else's superpower, they never take the time to discover their own.
That's right. That's like Spider-Man wanting to be Superman and Superman wanting to be Wolverine. And
I'm so happy you said that, because I literally say that to people all the time. I go, Superman's not mad because he can't talk to fish like Aquaman. When they got to do something like Superman, you can fly, you fly over there. Aquaman, go talk to the sharks. Batman, go do, and that's teamwork. And that also goes into leadership, which I'm a huge advocate about. I mean, I've been part of many companies where, poor leadership, the CEO would literally he was brilliant enough to come up with the idea for the company and or smart enough to put himself in the situation to become the CEO. You got to give credit for that, but they're just not good at their job. And I've watched CEOs just literally nosedive companies because they can't get out of their own ways and they don't understand leadership. They don't understand how to take in information from other strong players on their team and how to utilize them the most and or even give them credit and uplift them. This isn't my quote, but a quote that I'm sure you're familiar with was real leaders don't point out the worst in people, they bring out the best. And I'm a huge subscriber to that.
Yeah, I think your career speaks to that. I mean, you wouldn't be able to do the things that you've been able to do and be part of the things you've been a part of if you didn't have a perspective that says, look, I need to put people in the right seat doing the right thing, and they're may be awesome. Like I for one, I can't stand accounting. I love what accounting does.
Yeah,
I love what it does, but I can't stand it. Right. I'd rather be doing an interview like this and kicking it and having a good time and brainstorming about the next strategy, the next vision, scaling companies, stuff like that. That's what, right. But I've got people in accounting who are amazing at it.
Right.
Right. And I think it goes back to that Justice League approach, right? If Superman's trying to be something he's not, then you're not going to build a Justice League, right? That kind of crazy theology. When you look at, right, because you've got a lot of different genres, right? You've got music, right? You got also thought leadership, author, you've got a tech company, a radio station. So how
I'm part owner and co-founder of the world's fastest growing esports and gaming lifestyle brand as well, Xset.
Yeah, dude. I mean, those things you would think are not interconnected, maybe music, maybe media, but you found a way to connect them all. How did you do that? How did you kind of go through that process of saying, look, I can be in the system integrations thing, but I can also be in the video game space.
Right. Well, because it's the way I look at things. It's my view on life and people's psychology, right? And to really understand things in businesses, you have to understand people. Yeah. And to really understand people is a lot of so you have to have self-awareness, you have to have empathy, you have to have great communication, you have to understand how other people operate and think. There's a lot of people that really don't know how to get in other people's, shoes to see why, which is why people fight and arguments and wars and all these things happen, because you just can't really understand where they're coming from. So, the reason I say that is to say, I understand that since I was young, I've always been very analytical. I would assess even kids that bullied me, or even like my child molester. Like I think to myself, why does he do this? What's the reason behind this? What happened to him? And that's the way that I've approached life. So the way I'm able to interconnect the businesses is, another book I'm probably going to write is called Everything's the Same. Okay. Right? Because literally everything is the same. And I realized this when I was coming up, and I'd have great ideas, business ideas that I would share with, powerful people. And they'd look at me like, aren't you just a DJ? You know what I mean? And I would feel bad for them for pigeonholing me, for thinking because I'm just a DJ, there's no way I can come up with a game-changing idea on how to bank better. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, really? You're going to limit me to that? But based off what? Because what you think a DJ is? You know what I mean? So, and I would realize the way other people operate and the way that they see the world. And in order for me to become higher than that, I need to understand and accept all of that. Like, a lot of people will see, who thinks like that? Or why would they think like that? Or da-da-da. And they get mad and they combat it instead of accepting it and realizing it and then knowing how to navigate it. So, one of the things I say, even in personal relationships, if you have the same fight over and over again with your girl, then you're an idiot, because you know what bothers her, what her trigger words are, how she receives information, how you convey information that she doesn't like the way that you convey it. You know all these things already. So if you have all the ammunition, you have the map, and you understand, not saying your girl's your enemy, but if you know where your enemy is, where they're hiding, what kind of weapons they have, how they're going to attack, what time they're going to attack, and you know all that, and you still get defeated, then you're a donkey. So like, if you're have a relationship, whether it's in a business and you're a leader, you understand your employees, you understand your customers, you understand the partners that you have, same with business and personal relationships. You know all that, and you care enough to care about them, then you're able to resolve things. You're able to evolve. You're able to push things forward, and you're able to help other people that can't see what you can see. So a lot of times people get mad at others and they don't understand the mere fact that they just don't have the same tools in their toolbox that you have. So don't get mad at them because they don't. Instead, loan them your tools, or understand they don't have those tools and show them how to use those tools. But then you're also going to have some people that don't want you to show them, or don't think you're capable of showing them. So that's another level of talent that you have to show, to be able to change or help them or guide them. It's the old act, let them believe they came up with the idea, right? So it's like, if you're able to be so manipulative, and that word's a very negative word. People look at that as a negative, but it's not, because if you can manipulate the situation where it's a win-win-win for everybody, most people that have the skill to manipulate use it for evil. That's the problem, right? Or to be scammers. I understood the art of manipulating when I was young, because I was a thief too when I was a kid. So I took all of the ways that I used to come over on people when I was young, or to get what I needed, and applied that to being good and great and helping other people. And those are kind of like the attributes and the principles and values that I apply to be able to interconnect all of these businesses together, because really everything is the same. When you parallel any other business to the music business, everything is the same. Even drug dealing. You can take drug dealing and parallel that to Wall Street, to real estate, to whatever it is. Those people don't know because they never dealt drugs. You know what I mean? They don't understand it's the same. But when you're someone that, like me, that's lived 10 lives, and I've done everything, and I've listened to everybody, and I've always cared about even the communities I was in. I was always too white for the black kids and too black for the white kids. So like, I'm the only white kid in the city. And then when I moved to the suburbs, I'm the only kid that is wearing an Adidas tracksuit that understands city life. And like, I've always been that guy that was friends with everybody. Even in high school, people usually hang out with their social circle, right? I was always just Clinton Sparks. I never was like a jock. I was never like that guy. I was always the kid that would sit with, the ESL kids, with the jocks, with the black kids, with the Asian kids, with the kids downstairs that you don't even know what they're doing until you see them at lunch. Like, I would always, the Dungeons and Dragon kids, like, I sat at every single table. Why? Because I cared about everybody and cared about everything and how the world worked. And if I really wanted to understand the world, then I need to understand the people in it and how they operate and how they think. And I think a lot of people they focus more on what they're great at and don't recognize that what they're not good at, which is equally as important. And more often than not, there's a lot more things that you're not good at that are going to negatively affect you and the people around you that you need to be more mindful of.
Dude, that is so good.
Sorry if that was a long.
Dude, that was, dude. I think people need to hear more stuff like this on a consistent basis, because I think we sugarcoat things. I think we hide behind things. I think we don't face things head on. And one thing I can speak for probably both of us is that we've been forced to face things head on in many respects, right?
Right.
And
survival.
Yeah, exactly. And what you've been talking about and what you just got through articulating so well comes down to one of your other things that I just love to death, which is, this concept of decency. I can tell you that I was not a decent person. I can tell you that back in the day, before I knew any better, I was manipulative in getting things done. And then I learned that when I came from a place of selfishness, it was always manipulation. When I came from a place of selflessness, it was always influence. And the only difference is the perspective that you're using to get there. So I thought, dude, I love that. You talk about this thing all the time called build your business or build yourself off of decency. Like, what does that mean, and how can we apply that now in today's time specifically?
Well, I think what I really say is don't be a dick, right? and that's really what it comes down to, is just don't be a dick. Whether it's to customers, whether it's, again, to your employees, whether it's to partners, whether it's to friends, whoever it is, man, like, just don't be a dick. And it's so easy to not be, right? But like, people don't have self-control. They don't have emotional intelligence. They don't have self-awareness. So they don't even realize the negative or hurtful effect that they're having on somebody else in a relationship, or what a parent is doing to their kid, or what a boss is doing to their employees, or how a customer may feel like you don't give a shit about them because the way that you approach it. Sorry, man, I'm getting over this bronchitis.
All good.
And people the world just wants to feel something, right? You need to become a professional understander of what the feeling is that this person needs to feel. And I don't mean that in a way like, just bullshit them and let them feel what they need to feel and just go on with your way. I mean, if you really care, and I know, like, I keep stressing this, but like it's built in my DNA. I actually give a shit, right? And sometimes it hurts me. Sometimes I wish I didn't care so much. You know what I mean? I'd be better off, because sometimes I spend too much time trying to fix situations or people that don't even care to be fixed. There's one thing that I realized as I got older is, you'll sit there, you'll try to help somebody or see what they're doing wrong or get out of their own way. And then I realized as I got older, they didn't ask me for help. You know what I mean? So why am I upset that they're not receiving the help that I'm trying to give them? And I'm looking at it like, man, I'm taking all this time to help you. And da-da-da. Well, guess what, dude? I didn't ask you for help. You know what I mean? And I didn't realize that until I got older, that it's not my job to save the world or fix everybody in it. And who am I to come in here and tell you how to fix you? You know what I mean? And I think, and that's another really valuable lesson I learned. And that comes with experience, right? Is that, like, if somebody didn't ask, then they probably don't want your help. So when you get upset about them not receiving your help the way you want them to receive it, you need to realize, well, they didn't ask. And then you need to fall back and wait for them to ask. Even a parent with a kid, you're so worried about your kid making mistakes or making the wrong decisions that could have, long-term effects, that you're like, don't do that. Or da-da-da-da-da. My son, since he was 10, I never told him what to do, how to act, or who to be. And what I would do is I would say, hey, man, let me talk to you for a second. And I was like, I noticed that you were doing this. I want to point out some of the effects that could occur of you doing this. Yeah. So, this can happen, this can happen, this can happen.
Yeah.
I go, you can decide what you want to do, but I just wanted to give you advice on some of the results that could come of this that you might not necessarily like. Now that you know that, you can make your own decision on what's best for you, on who you want to be looked at, or how you want people to see you. Because this way, some people might think you're a dick. This way will help somebody. This way may not be helpful for you, but in the long run, da-da-da-da. So that's how I've guided my son, and that's how I even lead in a company. You know what I mean? Unless it's something very specific that needs to get done for a result that needs to get done for a customer or whatever it is. But for the most part, I don't tell people to be like me. You know what I mean? Or do it my way. Because somebody might have a better way or an equally as great way that now I'm learning, oh shit, their way works too. Now I have more tools in my shed. So I think a lot of people think when they win or they do something right, that that's the only way to win and that's the way that everybody else needs to do it. Simultaneously, I think a lot of people look at those that have won and have succeeded and think that's the only way you can succeed. And you try to follow in their footsteps. But again, you don't know who they knew, what they had. Did they have money? Did they have experience? Where did they go to school? Did they have a father or a mother or someone that taught them? Or did they have relationships that helped them get to where they are on a fast track? You don't know those things. So when you sit there and say, oh, but he did it this way, you don't know all the intricacies or the nuances that were maybe in his favor or the adversity that he had to get over that you're not facing. So it's really difficult to just look at somebody else's end results and think you need to do the same things they did to get to where they got to, because the same path doesn't work for everybody.
Now, let me ask you this, because I think that's important, that the story matters, right? I can tell you one of the biggest mistakes I ever made in building a business, 1 or 6, doesn't matter, it's the same mistake, is not building myself first, not building myself simultaneously. Mm-hmm. So here's what happened. I started my first company while I was homeless, right? And built it into a decent sized company, right? We've got 400 plus team members running around 3 states now.
What was that company?
It's a construction company called Custom Home Exteriors. I started it sleeping in a car and just grinded.
Right.
Right. But
amazing.
Thank you. For 7 years, 8 years, I never shared that story.
Right.
I never told anybody from my first team member I hired all the way up to until that time. I think it was like 25th or 26th team member at the time. I'd never shared the story. I go to a seminar and the one of the speakers was like, look, your story matters. Your story matters. You need to share the origin story, which is why one of the reasons I love to ask the origin story anytime I have someone like yourself on, right? Because I always know that people don't necessarily see the fight. They don't see the grind. They don't see what you have to put in. They don't see how many
knockdowns. They don't see the knockdowns, the pain, the hurt, the crying, the doubt. Yeah.
People that betrayed me, stabbed me right in the back because they were going to try to do what I was going to do with my stuff. I mean, dude, almost 20 years in business, I had my executive team, I will say allegedly, because I don't have the conviction yet, walked out of here with $1.4 million, right?
Yeah.
These guys have been for 12 or 15 years, dude. My heart was shattered.
Yeah.
Right? No one talks about the story. And I feel like one of the things that I've done differently in order to become a better leader, one, and then also help people understand what you were doing with your son is the result behind the action. Like you make this action, this is the domino effect. Right? Is by sharing the story. So when I am passionate about, hey, the customer's got to be solved, we got to make sure that customer's taken care of. When I am passionate about, hey, Susie's hurting right now, you can't expect her to have top performance right now. Right. Everybody else, let's encircle Susie right now so we can make sure Susie's okay. We'll pick up the pieces, Susie. We'll give you a hot minute to kind of like work on that. Like you're not getting fired.
Yep.
Just take a minute, right?
Right.
All of that came out of actually just sharing that story. Do you find that like one of the things that you've been very, even on this show so far, you've been very vulnerable about some of the things that you've faced. Do you find that other people gain strength from stories as well as experience and understanding?
Well, it's funny because much like yourself, I didn't share my adversity and terrible stories as a youngster until 2014. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I didn't share it is because the way I grew up, I had the mentality, no one gives a shit, right? Yeah. So everyone's got pain, everyone's got problems, everyone goes through stuff. No one gives a shit about me or what I went through. So I never really shared it because I wasn't looking for sympathy. I wasn't looking for people to feel bad for me. And like, look, I was dealt a shitty hand and I figured it out. I was born in a hole. I have a saying, don't mistake me because I was born from a broken home and broke that I'm broken. Yeah. So, I was birthed into a deep hole. Yeah. I dug myself out. Right. And I'm out. The only thing that matters now is I'm out. You know what I mean? What's the point now to say, I was in a hole? You know what I mean? Like for what? And that's what I thought most of my life. And even when I was young, coming up in hip hop, I would have got stripes if I bragged about like my sticking people up or robbing houses and stealing cars, right? But I wasn't proud of it. And I thought it was actually whack that I did that, right? So I didn't want to go around saying like, man, you know, I used to stick people up and like, that is like a shitty dude, right? So I wasn't proud and I didn't want to brag about it. Although in the space I was in, people would be like, yo, that's a real for them, and this and that. But that's not real for them. It's a real for the whack dude, in my opinion, right? Side note, even when I was a thief, I still had a big heart back then. To give you an example, I know it's an oxymoron, but like I would rob people's houses, but I wouldn't wipe them out because I know how hard my mom worked. And if she came home and our video camera, our VCR and our TV, it was all gone, we'd be screwed. Yeah. If just our VCR was gone, it'd be like, that's weird. How's our VCR gone? And we just go rent a new one or something. You know what I mean? Like back then, I didn't want to wipe somebody out, which actually created more of a risk for me because that means I had to rob like 3 times as many houses to get the stuff I needed to get. But anyways, so back to 2014, I did a anti-bullying campaign with Deutsch Worldwide, Donnie Deutsch's company, and Galderma, which is acne medicine for teens. And part of that, so they commissioned me to create the song for the campaign, which the song is called I'm Good, and it has like over 55 million streams on Spotify to date. And we won awards for the campaign. But anyways, during the course of the campaign, we were having submissions from people that have been bullied. And I was reading these letters. And it was the first time I thought to myself how moved I was from these stories and these letters. And then I thought, like, because see, I don't look at myself as awesome as other people may look at me, right? So I don't look at me as having an important voice that if I say something, it's going to have a positive effect on anybody. Yeah. And I know it's weird. Like my friends and people close to me always say, "You're an idiot, dude. Like you're Clinton Sparks, right?" And I'm all, you won Grammy, you sold 75 million records, you've done all these fascinating things, but I still look at myself as just a regular dude from Boston trying to get people familiar with me and doing the right thing, trying to make other people happy. Yeah. So when I was doing that campaign in 2014, I decided I'm going to share my story. Yeah. And that was the first time I told the world that I was sexually abused for many years, or I was bullied, or any of those things. And I realized too that prior to that, going back to your point about tell the story, is like all you knew of Clinton Sparks was, assuming you like me, all you knew about was, yo, he's just a dope ass DJ and he makes killer beats. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like you didn't know me. You know what I'm saying? Like you didn't know, you knew I was from Boston and you knew I was funny because I interviewed everyone from Jay-Z to Eminem and I'd always like pull pranks and stuff like that. But like you didn't really know who he was, what makes him tick. You know what I mean? And like 2014 was the first time I really opened up and I realized from the response how many people I could help and how beneficial it was. That was one important thing. Another important thing that helped me realize the power of who I am. Because again, when you're in your own world, you think like, if you think great, you just think, oh, doesn't everybody think like this? You know what I mean? You're not thinking like, you don't know that this is a special way of thinking, right? And I remember when, because I was robbing and stealing when I was young, I kept getting arrested. My mom kept having to get me from the police station. Finally, I was 14 and I almost got sent to juvie till I was 18 and I was in the judge's quarters and they let the person whose house I was robbing decide whether I went to the custody of the state or back home with my mom. And thankfully, like the woman was like, well, I have a son, so, and I was like, oh my God, right? So she let me go. And then my mom was like, that's it, you're going with your dad. I'm tired of this shit. So she sends me to my dad who lives in the suburbs. So at that time, I'm like, I'm not moving to the boondocks today. Like I'm fighting with my mom over it. I go and I move with him and, my dad's rock bottom alcoholic. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So like now I'm living with an alcoholic, and dealing with all that comes with that. Yeah. So
alcoholic too for a long time.
Yeah. So it sounds like we have a lot in common.
We got a ton in common, dude.
Yeah. And I think a lot of great people go through a great success. I don't mean great people, even though you're probably a great guy. We're just meeting now and you seem great. But I'm saying like great success. People that have great success, most of them, delete the ones that just had a really rich dad that put them into space to follow in their footsteps. But everybody else, man, like they all went through shit to get to where they are, man. And they all hurt. And that's another thing too. I meet so many great men. And there's great women too, but I'm just speaking about men right now that like, they all have so much hurt inside, especially caused from their dad or the lack of their dad not being there, that like there's this whole like core of like, no one says it and you're not thinking it consciously when you're doing it, but it's almost like a freak dad. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm gonna win now. And like, that's a whole nother book that I'm working on called Thanks Dad. And it's literally like the whole psychology behind, thanks Dad for not being there. Cause I might not be as great as I am if you were there. Cause if you were around, your assholishness might've made me whack. You know what I mean? So, but then it also gets deep into like, why do men who have no dad around or have a shitty dad grow up to become great men and better fathers than their dad? Why? Or like, why also are we told as men from day one to, wipe the tears off your face, pull down your skirt and shut up and get back on the field? You know what I mean? So like, guys have no place to break down. Guys have no place to cry. Guys have no place to go and be held. You know what I mean? And they have no place to say, it's okay, man. It's okay. Everything's going to be all right. So they run around with this pent up anger, and then in this misguided direction of who they're supposed to be and how they're supposed to act, which makes them aggressive, maybe in a relationship, or maybe to their kids, or maybe want to dominate in business and treat other people like shit, because that's the only way they feel like a man, if they come in here and stomp on you and make sure they're winning. And that's a big important part I talk about in my book, that mentality of, to be great. Most people feel like they need to make other people not great.
Yeah.
So in my book, I talk about helping others be great is being great.
Amen.
And a lot of people don't recognize that.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, I totally agree that people of immense value are often people who went through immense crushing. Mm-hmm. And it's because that adversity, that experience teaches them something special about every circumstance, about every interaction, about every person they come in contact with. I totally get that. I mean, I love that for sure. You've also got this thing that you just mentioned where the about the men who are starving, right? So I would dare say that when I was a kid, dad wasn't around a whole lot, raised by grandmother until she passed away for the most part, right? Because dad was dealing with dad, mom was dealing with mom. They both had their own struggles, early on, late on, all that kind of stuff. I think the starving led to the hunger to become a great dad.
Yep.
Starving led to the hunger of trying to build something that, yes, would impress dad. Right? My dad tried to talk me out of starting my first company. He's like, with what tools, what money, with what, how are you going to do it? And
Rich dad, poor dad.
Dude, I'll figure it out. Well, the funny thing was his boss, right? Or his employer was a guy by the name of Steve Meyer, became my first mentor. And the one thing he told me one time, he said, look, you can be like your father and your grandfather. My grandfather survived Pearl Harbor. After Pearl Harbor, I'm sure he dealt with PTSD, and that started the alcohol train, right?
Yep.
He said, and he actually used this. He said, he actually slapped me. He didn't slap me in the back of the head, but he thought he was going to. He said, what's the difference between a rich man and a poor man? I said, well, duh, money. He's like, no, heck no, dude. It's the way they think. Yeah. If you can either think like your dad or you can think like me, and that'll determine where you're going. Yeah. And I love that.
Well, one thing is a fact is that a rich guy will never understand how to think like a poor guy if he was never poor. And a poor guy will never understand how to think like a rich guy if he was never rich. I've been both. Sounds like you've been too, which is why like people like us will have more to offer because we understand the whole spectrum. Yeah. And I go even deeper than just money or financial status. I go into like, cultures, demographics, like races. And like, I really listen to like, when I would be the only white kid in a black school, I would listen to and pay attention to, why does this dude act like this way? Why does he feel that way? And then I would do the same thing everywhere I went. So I've always been like, since I was young, I was always into like people and marketing. So like I would even, quick story, when I was young, we're probably close to the same age. When I was young, you'll relate because these things didn't exist when I was a kid, but I would watch TV on Saturday morning and I'd have Eggo waffles and then I'd have like either Mrs. Butterworth or Aunt Jemima or Vermont syrup. And I would say to my mom, why doesn't Eggo also make syrup so they can lock down the whole breakfast experience? Yeah. And she'd be like, shut up, Clinton, eat your waffles, right? And then I remember another time when I was a kid, Reese's Peanut Butter Cup used to brag about how great the peanut butter was. So I used to be like, why don't they put it in a jar like Skippy and Jif? What are they waiting for? You know what I mean? Like they both went on to do that. Yeah. But this is me, late 80s as a kid, already seeing what companies should be doing to better improve their business. You know what I mean? So I would do that. And I would also like drive in the back of my mom's car, ride. And I'd look at billboards and be like, man, that didn't really sell the message. Man, not everyone's going to understand what that means. Or that, and I would always do that as a kid. So I didn't realize then, obviously, because again, I didn't know that my mind was a special mind as a kid, right? I'm thinking, why would they do that? Then what idiot would think like that? Because I'm a kid. And I'm thinking everyone thinks the same. It really wasn't until about maybe 5, maybe even less than that. Maybe like four years ago was the first time I finally admitted to myself or accepted all of the compliments I've been getting for the past 20 years about how great of a person I am or how great the way I think is. And I recently, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, a guy named Michael Lerman, big name in real estate and investing, has $150 billion in real estate with Anthony Orso and a bunch of those people. And he came, I was president of an app company, and he came because he wanted to see it. So he came, I used to throw the biggest parties in Hollywood Hills. All the influencers, everybody who somebody would come. So this particular night, I threw a big prank on all of like the most popular kids online, right? And then after the prank was revealed, Tiger and Kylie Jenner came out, and Tiger performed. So he was like, I can't believe that. He was so fascinated how it was just came so natural to me, and how it was just the job, getting the job done, right? I wasn't looking for compliments or pats on the back. It was just like, how do I make this work? Okay, dope. And in one of the chapters of my book is called Mastering Art, Automatic Resourceful Thinking. So whenever I figure out how to do something, I just immediately think, how do we fix this? Or how do I make that work? Or how does it happen? So he's like, can we go to breakfast tomorrow? So he took me to Chiconi's the next day in Beverly Hills. And this is a guy that people would pay big money to sit with for 10 minutes. We sat for 6 hours and had breakfast. And one of the things he said to me, and I never had a father figure, right? Especially someone that cared to give me advice. So the one thing he said to me that stuck out to me was two things. One was, I don't think you understand how magnificent your brain is. He goes, you have like a 1 in a million brain. You don't think like everybody else. And I think that if you realized how powerful your brain was, you would be just as successful as me. He goes, not to disrespect your music, you're a great musician, but if you came over in my world and did what I was doing, you would dominate. That was one thing he said. The other thing he said was, the reason why you're not as successful as I am is because you think like a broke man. And I said, what do you mean? And he goes,
like our mentors are talking on the phone.
And he goes, if you had $100,000 to your name and you had a really good opportunity to invest that money, would you just do it? And I thought to myself, well, I'd probably invest half and save half as protection. And he goes, and that's why you'll never be as rich as me. And again, back to my story earlier, I don't know his past. I don't know his family heritage. I don't know if they had money, this and that. But someone like me that came from nothing, that made millions from zero, right? I did it my way and it worked. Yeah, I might not have 100 million like him, but I'm good and I'm safe. You know what I mean? So like, even right now, like I'll never need $1 billion. I'll never need $1 billion, right? And it's funny because like James Lee Bainbridge, who was the chairman of JP Morgan, he's the one that created bridge loans. One day I'm at his house and we were talking, and as I'm talking to him, I was booked as a DJ for his son's college graduation through Edgar Bronfman, who owned the label, and then got Kevin Liles, and Kevin Liles asked Leo Cohen, and then they said, let's get Clinton Sparks, because they asked Diddy. So Diddy was like, get Clinton Sparks, right? So what a great line of great men to follow into me, right? So anyways, so I'm there, and then me and him are sitting in his smoker's room, and I'm just talking. And you could tell what I'm about to tell you has happened to me so many times in my life, where like really powerful titans in industry, I have the chance opportunity to sit with them, and me just talking fascinates them. And they end up looking at me saying, aren't you a DJ? Back to that story, right? And then, and so what ended up happening with me and him, the night was ending and I was walking to my car. He lived on a golf course, and it was like, the middle of like 3 a.m. You hear the crickets. I'm walking across gravel. And then you can hear his screen door open with the creak. And he calls my name as I'm walking to my car. And he goes, Clint, let me talk to you. He's saying, comes out with his house coat on. He comes over to me. He goes, when you need your first $1 billion, will you let me give it to you? And I was like, dude, I'll never need $1 billion. And he was like, no, with your brain, you will be. And I want to be the guy that gives it to you because I know where you're going. And it's so funny because even at this point, I've made millions. I've built $1 million brands.
Yeah.
I still, to this day, now I know that I'm dope, right? I know that you can put me in a room and give me a product and I could give me 10 minutes. I'll think of 10 more ways of how that can be delivered better, how it can be used more, how we can save money on it. Like, I know that I have the kind, like, I love my brain. I trust my brain.
That's
right.
All the Get Familiar subsidiaries that you got are all like doing so well. I think
say that again. You cut out a little bit.
Your Get Familiar subsidiaries, all the Get Familiar line, that vertical integration you're building, I think that speaks directly to that. I think you can position anything and any product and any service and any person to be more than it already is.
Sure. Right. Well, thank you. I appreciate that endorsement.
True. I mean, it is what it is, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess the point that I was trying to get at is I forget the point I was getting at because I lost my train of thought. But
not exciting.
But yeah, rest in peace, James Lee. He ended up passing away. But yeah, I mean, how do you get a guy that, can, conceive one of the greatest urban video websites in the world and then also be working on campaigns with Donnie Deutsch? You know what I mean? Or, creating campaigns with Marissa Mayer when she was the CEO of Yahoo, and then over here telling Rick Ross how he should be doing something, with hip hop. You know what I mean? And then now you have a guy who comes in the gaming space and builds the biggest gaming brand in the world, makes it from zero to a $240 million valuated company in 2.5 years. And that is coming from somebody that understands culture, understands people, understands industries. I've always been the guy that you could put me in a room with JetBlue, Johnson & Johnson, Big Sean, Chase Bank, and like things that are completely opposite of each other. And they're all in a room thinking, what are we sitting here for? I don't understand. I'm the guy that can literally know why all you guys should be in here, understand what each other's doing, what you should know about each other, why you should partner, how you can do it together. Then I'm the guy that can put the whole activation or initiative together, wrap it up in a bow and say, here's how it's going to win. So like, and that comes from being a kid, going through all the shit I went through, understanding it, accepting it, realizing it. Now, if I can only let, the magnificence of my brain be accepted, the same I accept everything else, maybe I will be a superstar. But I also think I'm a little scared to believe that I'm as great as other people might think they are, because who knows what that might make me. And I don't even think I have the ability to ever recognize myself for being as great as others may think I am because of my past. Yeah.
Well, I think your past uniquely positioned you. I would dare say that one of the things that has allowed success to come in a variety of forms for yourself, myself, people in general who are forced to get creative to survive.
Right.
Forced to build relationships to survive. Forced to think outside the box to survive. I think at the end of the day, that's why you've been so successful. That's why these businesses, these titans of industry, they can come in the room and they trust you to come into the room.
Right. Well, speaking of that's why the second to last chapter of my book, How to Win Big in the Music Business, forward written by Shark Tank's Damon John, available at winbiginmusic.com. The last chapter in this book, I tell this like really elaborate, fascinating story about how I was able to shoot a video of mine called Gold Rush. And in that video, I have 2 Chainz, Macklemore, Tommy Lee of Motley Crue, and Tyrese. And I talk about how I pulled that all together by mastering art, by using your resources, from showing my networking from years prior, how that got me to get Tommy Lee, from providing value to 2 Chainz, and like all the things that made that story come together and work. And then I end it by saying, now you might be reading this thinking, of course you can do that because you're Clinton Sparks and you know all these people. And my answer would be, no, you dick. I can do all these things because I did all the things I'm telling you to do in this book that got me to this position to be able to do it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. That's the most frustrating thing for people to say, well, I want to do what you do, or I want to be successful. I want to do this kind of thing. Well, do this. I don't really want that kind of crap. I don't know, dude. Well,
people that are winners are willing to lose sleep, lose friends, lose money, lose time. The problem is the generation now is they want, because we're in such a fast moving, disposable world with social media, these kids, the internet lies, right? And all they do is believe the internet. and they put on this fake facade, and people want to be treated according to this fake facade that they created for themselves. They actually believe their own lie, and they believe they should be treated according to the lie that they created. Yeah. And it's all a facade, and it's all fake, and it's a house of cards. And they don't understand that. And I think that's one of the most important things. One of the reasons that drove me to make this book and this course, and why I care so much about helping people, and even the way that I treat the talent on Xset, my gaming brand, is I've been around long enough to watch, athletes and rappers and influencers and business people come and go, right? Yeah. And just fail. They'll have one hit, or because they didn't have the right team around them. They didn't have the right information. They didn't have anybody leading them in the way that's going to show them how to develop their brand, how to make it sustainable, how to be scalable, understanding mental and physical health, understanding emotional awareness, understanding financial literacy. And, I think that's what this generation lacks. They want the quick success. They want the million streams, the million followers, but for what? And I think about that all the time. You'll see kids on there like, yo, I'm this many followers away from that. Okay, well, what are you going to do with that now? Yeah. Are you going to do good for the world? Are you going to build some kind of company that can employ people? Are you going to what's the point of having all these followers or all this success if there's no big game plan at the end of it? And even in the music business, when I tell people, if you get lucky enough to go viral or to have a song that catches on, you sure as hell better have an amazing business set up and ready for when that crowd and that audience comes to you from your social media platforms, from your merch and your e-commerce, for your touring, for your team, for everything. And I think, that all comes into building your plan from day one. And if you ask somebody young now, more often than not, what do you want out of life? What do you want to do? Or what do you want to be? It's rich and successful, right? And that's great. That's a great plan. But what is your plan to become rich and successful? And I think that's the severe thing that most people forget. They think if they just keep doing the same thing, like let's take a rapper, for instance. I'm in the studio every night making new records, and it's been 2 years and I haven't really got no momentum. Well, you're not doing the right thing. Even though you think you're killing it being in the studio every night, that is one piece of the job that has 10 more parts to it, that if you're not doing those 9, it doesn't matter how many times you're in the studio. And that applies to every business in the world. If you keep doing the same thing, there's a chapter called Stop Trying to Knock Down Brick Walls with Snowballs. And what I mean by that is, you keep doing the same thing over and over again and not understanding why you're not getting momentum. I'm making great product. I'm putting out great merch. I'm but you're not finding the right audience for it. You're not marketing it right. You're not collaborating right. You're not dealing with the right distributors. There's so many other components, but people are so blind to see that they don't recognize that some of the fault could be their very own. They want to blame somebody else. Or it's because of the algorithm. Or it's because of, that's the great word, right? The algorithm's not letting me get any shine. You know what I mean? It's no, you're Al, okay? Last name Gorhythm. It's you, Al. You're fucking it up.
Sorry. I love it. Well, tell me this, all right? So how to win big in the music business? So what I'm hearing, what I'm discovering more, it's not just business, baby. It is life. It is business. It is everything. It's perspective. It's understanding. It is a must read. There's no doubt about it, right?
It is. You're right.
Help me understand one thing, right? What was missing from the conversation? Yeah. That you were like, now's the time. I got to write this book. Now's the time. The world needs it. It's got to be read by everybody. Why? Why is now the time?
Because there's never been a better or easier time to make money with music. The independent and DIY industry is about to be a $2 billion industry, and it's just the Wild West. It's back to the audience I was just telling you about, right? The avatar is young kids that care about fashion, social media, gaming, and really making money, but in music, right? So those are the 4 things they all care about, right? It used to be when we were young, it was segmented, like the kids that listen to heavy metal are over there, the kids that listen to rapper over there, the kids now it's all one, right? This is the first time in the history of music, pop music used to always dominate the percentage of what people listen to. This is the first time another music genre has taken over pop music, and it's hip hop. We're in a hip hop world, right? Whether you like it or not, right? The squarest, grandpa to, the Becky that used to be like, oh my God, they're in there singing the most ratchet lyrics in hip hop and dancing online to and they're singing it, right? So it's a hip hop world, whether you like it or not. And there's nobody out there that's helping the youth understand, I say it in my forward, I'm going to teach you how to do more dope shit and less whack shit. Yeah. And like, there's nobody out there doing that. And there's nobody really qualified on the many levels that I am. I mean, there's other people that are more famous than I am, right? Like you could take, like, say, a DJ Khaled, and he could say, I'm writing a book and doing a course. But Khaled didn't do everything that I did. Yeah. He was a DJ and a producer, and a very successful one. Right? But he hasn't done the 10 other things, you know what I mean, to understand all of the steps somebody's going to go through. Would he be awesome at understanding certain things? Of course, he's a killer. He's super successful. Or a Diddy could do it, right? But like, they haven't done all the things that I've done. Like, and I've done it like guerrilla style myself. You know what I'm saying? So like, I'm in the trenches doing all of the things that I'm teaching you to do. And I'm also sharing the psychology. So like, this isn't a book about, it's not full of legal jargon that's going to tell you like, here's what you must do legally to da-da. No, like, there's books out there that do. Look how thin this book is. Right. This book is like, it's what Grant Cardone's millionaire booklet is for the music business in life. It's something you can keep going back to, and it teaches you the psychology and the mentality to how to win big. And the values and the principles that are in this book are transferable really to any industry. And everybody from Rob Dyrdek to Damon John have all said, this book is a book at winning at life. Yeah. Right? But if I came out of nowhere and said, how to win big at life, being a DJ, going back to the story again, you're going to have somebody say, what does this DJ know about winning at life? So if I come out showing you how to win big in music in a space that's tens of millions of people are trying to win it, and there's billions of dollars to be made, and there's nobody else owning this space like a Gary Vee or a Ty Lopez or a Grant Cardone. There's no one doing it. I can be that guy, but here's the great part about it. I actually give a shit. And I actually really want to help you guys. This isn't a pyramid scheme or some ploy to sell a product that I'm just going to get rich. One of the things I say in the book too is, if you feel victorious or like a winner because you can convince somebody to invest in something or buy something that's not insanely valuable for them, that doesn't make you a great salesman. It makes you a con man. And that's the difference between me, I believe, and a lot of other people out here. When you want to learn how to win, you have to learn from people that have done what you're trying to do and have done it very successfully. There's a lot of people out here on the internet pawning off books and courses and stuff like, I'm going to show you how to, be successful in the music business or whatnot. But like, look at their receipts. Look at what they've done. Like, have they done the things you're trying to do? Have they sold millions of records? Have they found and discovered and made them superstars? Have they managed superstars? Have they had record deals? Have they traveled the world? Do they understand, all the things that go on in the music? They don't. Anybody can read some stuff and then just like regurgitate information from a book, but you have to live this life to really understand everything that you have coming ahead of you, because there's a lot of shit that you're not going to learn from a lawyer. A lawyer is just going to understand, well, here's how you can get sued. Well, here's how you can get fucked up in the rest of your life. And I'm going to tell you that, which is different than, you can get a lawyer to worry about that. Pay a lawyer and you never have to worry about it. But guess what? The way you say something, the way you carry yourself, the way that you don't deliver on something, the way that you treat a customer or a fan, the way that they're not going to tell you that shit. I'm going to tell you that. And I'm going to show you how to do it right so that you can build a sustainable, scalable career and make a shit ton of money in the music business.
Well, I don't think there's anything you can add to that, homie. Experience is the deal, man. I think that's one of the things. So I'm in this weird space, in this headspace now where I
see how hip hop. See, all of a sudden the hip hop came out when you called me homie. See, it's a hip hop world,
dude. It's good with me, dude. It's funny. I feel like we're in this weird season now, and you touched you beat it. You actually hit it really hard, which is the spirit of authenticity and equals experience. There are only certain things that you're only going to learn by actually doing the thing, or you can learn the thing of what not to do or what to do by somebody who's already done it. There's only two ways to learn, right?
Right.
I got one final question for you. If you give me 3 more minutes.
Nope, I'm out of here. See you later.
Well, I guess the story's over, right? I got a real young man who dropped out of high school. He hit the hard life like we did early on. Spent about a year away from home doing dealing drugs, the whole deal. Yep. Came back home, reconnected with his family, ready to kind of start his life over. He wants to get into the music industry from making beats and all that kind of stuff. But part of him feels like, this is a real young man, okay? Somebody that I'm connected to personally.
Yep.
this young man feels like his life is over because he went away for a while and now he's having to start over. And I've been trying to encourage him and say, no, dude, you just got to keep going at it.
Right.
You're going to make mistakes. It's okay.
Right.
What would you say to him in this environment, since this is his industry he wants to get into, and he's made some decisions that kind of led him down some similar paths that we faced?
Right. I mean, look at us.
Yeah.
Just go. Just go. I say the same thing to my son. Like, give a perfect example. My son wants to start creating content. He went and bought his own PC, bought his own camera, bought his own equipment. And every time he gets something else, he's like, well, now I got to do this. Well, now I got to get this. And this has to be right. And I got to get a shooter. And I got to get rid of the zit. And I got to, whatever it is, he's always making an excuse to not just go.
Yeah.
Right. And like, Dave Grohl said it best. It's a great quote. He goes, get into a garage, get with your band, suck, and then keep playing, and then suck some more. And then all of a sudden you're Nirvana. And that's what people need to do. Like, you're not going to know how to navigate or what to do right or what to do more of or what to stop doing if you don't just go. Like, everybody wants things to be perfect. Another chapter in my book, stop waiting for some magical moment that doesn't exist. Just go.
Get a copy of your book. That's already given. Definitely happened that. Speaking of your book.
You mean this book right here? WinBigInMusic.com?
I mean that book right there. That was my next question. Where can we get that sucker at?
WinBigInMusic.com, WinBigInMusic.com. That's where you can get the book. The book is free, so you're welcome. Get familiar. And if you're somebody that wants to go even further, I have a course with over 60 videos with the most fascinating, successful people in the music business, teaching you everything from marketing and advertising to branding to how to record, mix and master your music, to publishing, to understand how to create effective video content, how to monetize on YouTube, how to build your own e-commerce and merch store. Everything you need to know to become a business with your music is in my course, and it's at winbiginmusic.com. Lastly, I also have a show called Win Big with Clinton Sparks every Monday night on Twitch, twitch.tv/Clinton Sparks. The show's only been up for 6 weeks. Last week, we had 320,000 people watching the show. So we've had everybody from Offset to Damon John to Teddy Riley to Rob Dyrdek to T.I. to Angela Yee to Ray J, Sway Lee. All these fascinating people have been on the show already, and we're going to continue to give you game every Monday night. Twitch.tv/Clinton Sparks. Get familiar.
Dude, boom, show's over. Mic drop. I got like 6 mics. I got to drop them all. I've loved it, man. No, I appreciate you taking the time to come on and hang out with me for a little while and really share, a tremendous amount of wisdom. There's so much that you've taught us today, and I really appreciate it. And can't wait to see how this other things talk, all the Get Familiar, all the e-courses. Like, if there's anything I can do to help you become even more successful like you need it, but if there's anything I can do to help that along the way, you just let me know.
Man, I really appreciate that offer, and thank you for having me on here, and your friendship is good enough.
All right, my buddy. Take care, man. See ya.
All right, pal. Hit me if you need anything.
Will do.
I do.
Dude, Clinton Sparks is a firecracker. I hope you enjoyed that interview. So make sure you check out this one right here to keep you moving.
So those are the scenes that me and my teammates are in. In fact, that opening scene, you've probably seen it, where, you get catapulted off the carrier. You see the steam coming off the catapult, and myself and my teammates salute the catapult officer, and bam,